Hello YouTube. All right, back on the Firebird, got another project to do. So I got a little bit of a transmission drip. It's dripping from the side of the pan. I've even got one of them fancy Speedway Motors, the cast aluminum with the fins on it pan. I bought one of them expensive Moroso rubber reusable gaskets, and I've still got a drip. So I'm gonna take it apart, clean everything up, see if I can figure out what's going on, and then I'm gonna use a little bit of RTV along with the gasket, reseal it back up, see if I can stop this drip. All right, here we go. So this car has a 700 R4 Chevrolet transmission mated to a Pontiac 455 engine. There's an adapter plate that goes in between them, and then you use a pilot bushing and some spacers for the flex plate. Anyway, it's got a drain plug on the trans pan, which is really convenient. Now see, there's the drain plug. It seems to be about a 14 millimeter, maybe a 9/16. 14 seems to fit the best on it. But there's the pan, nice looking pan. If you're ever taking off a transmission pan that doesn't have a drain plug on it, you know what a messy, nasty, awful job that is. So it really gives you some value to having a drain plug. Very convenient. So I'm gonna let this drain, then I'm gonna jack the car up, get underneath it, and take this pan off. Well, that finishes draining. I want to show you something that I learned though when I got this Speedway Motors cast aluminum fin pan. It came with some bolts, and the bolts are way too short, so I had to buy some longer bolts. I'll turn the camera around and show you. So it came with these silver bolts. These silver bolts, you might be lucky to grab one or two threads out of it. I can't even believe that it actually comes with those bolts. They're so short, I would never use those. So I ended up ordering some M8 by 30 millimeter bolts. These black ones, much longer, give you a lot more grip, especially when you're gonna be using a nice thick gasket. These might work if you're using a real thin gasket. I'd still be leery of the amount of threads that stick through. But if you're gonna use a thick gasket like the Moroso one, you're gonna want these longer bolts. All right, we're back on this trans pan issue. So I pulled the other one out. I pulled the trans pan off, and a Moroso gasket, super expensive gasket, supposed to be reusable. It's steel impregnated rubber. Supposed to be reusable. That thing was shredded. I mean, it was just junk. I should have taken some pictures of it before I threw it away. But it had split all over the place just from torquing on the bolts, and I followed their torque specs. So I'll turn the camera around. I'm going to show you this this trans pan, and I'll show you the gasket I bought instead, and talk about a couple other things. All right, so instead of getting another Moroso gasket, I got this Mavani. It's on Amazon. The reviews for it are really good. People say that they suspect it is the same as it's just a Moroso gasket rebranded. It's significantly cheaper. The way that Moroso one fell apart, there's no way I would use another one of them again anyway. That thing, it was splitting like all over the place. It would split from these relief holes, I guess, and it was just shredded all to pieces. There's no reason. I mean, that's obviously why it leaked. It was insanity. The other thing with it is when you look at the Moroso instructions, they call for 60 inch-pounds of torque followed by 120 inch-pounds of torque. And then they've got a bolt pattern that they want you to follow. I think that 120, I mean, Moroso's calling for it. I think it might be a little much. It's, you start torquing it down, that 60 is fine, and then you go double that to 120. The rubber on this gasket, it starts pushing out the sides, and you can see when I took the old one off that it had pushed to the inside and it pushed to the outside, and it had like flattened down to the metal inside this rubber gasket. I'm kind of questioning if the 120 is too much. Another thing is I'm going to use Permatex Ultra Black on this. So on these rubber gaskets, they're supposed to be reusable, but I found that the Moroso one, it leaked. It had a pretty steady drip. So I got some, let's see, Max Flex, Optimum, Maximum oil resistance Permatex here. And one of the reasons I'm going to use it is you got all these relief holes on here, which the way that thing squished down, I think oil could get out through there. When you're looking at the bottom of the transmission too, it gets awfully thin in a couple spots on the rail where I think the thing was squishing down to nothing. But this is where I'm going to review this trans pan too and show you why I'm going to use that as well, or why I'm going to use the Permatex. Okay, so this trans pan is by Speedway Motors. It's for a 700 R4. It's a cast aluminum with cooling fins on the bottom of it. It's slightly more capacity than a factory. That's a little bit deeper because of the holes on the side. These are a lot thicker than the stamped steel trans pan that the transmissions come with. And I showed you already why I had to get longer bolts because of these way thicker. The bolts that come with the trans pan, they barely grip any threads when you're using that long, thick gasket. If you use the paper gasket, you'd probably be fine. Or if you just use RTV, you'd probably be fine. So that's why I bought the longer bolts. Now this is my second one of these trans pans because on the first one, there was a crack. One of them cracked across a corner, and I don't even think I over torqued it or anything. It was from the bolting up. I think it cracked. Now this one here, there's a crack right there. Now that's a pretty slight crack. And the other one, it was the same idea. It went across one of these casting holes, and it's got this little crack right here. I don't think that's enough to leak, but that's one of the reasons I'm gonna use the Permatex. But you can see these casting is rough. These are these are holes from the casting, and they're really rough. They're really deep. That's that little crack right there. This is a little cracking right here around this hole. There's a little cracking around this one, and these are from the casting holes. This isn't from me over torquing it. These are cracks from the manufacturing process. So it's made in Taiwan. It comes with a drain plug, which is awesome. And then I had to drill a hole over here for my temp sensor. Like I said, this is my second one of these pans. The first one I had to warranty it because it cracked across the corner and there was transmission fluid coming out across the corner there. Now this isn't cracked from any of the bolt holes, and the other one wasn't either. It was cracked from these casting holes. I think these things are kind of crappy. Despite supposedly added capacity, added cooling, they look nice. They're cast instead of stamped. You would think they'd be nice. I think they're inherently weak the way they're built. Maybe that Moroso torque spec is too tall, or 120 is too high, perhaps. Maybe I'll put this together with a little bit less torque, but showing these cracks and the way this thing's casted, and then the way the gasket squished down and everything, I'm gonna use the Permatex on both sides of the gasket, and I don't think I'm gonna go all the way to 120. I'm gonna research and see what the factory called for on their trans pan torque spec and maybe use that. I think it's more like 108 or something. It said 120, which not a huge difference, but I think this 120 is just excessive. A Google search is quite inconclusive. You start searching the Google and it'll tell you 8 foot-pounds, 9 foot-pounds, 10 foot-pounds. You got people saying 15. It's crazy, the variation. Even the AI on the Google, I think it says the 120, but that's too much. That gasket starts pushing out, it splits it. I'm even thinking 100 might be too much. So there's no consensus on all these different websites. You go to a bunch of websites for Camaros and Corvettes, and nobody really has a consensus. Even people are talking, I talked to a dealership mechanic, I looked in all data, I looked in the shop manual, and it's still all this different variation. I think I'm gonna end up around, I don't know, 90 inch-pounds maybe, go like 60 and 90. And even at 90, I think it's gonna be really squishing out pretty bad. I don't wanna go much below that, but like I said, Googling, it's all over the place. So I think I'll start with 60, see how much the gasket's squishing out, and then go to 90. But first I'm gonna smear some Permatex on both sides of this gasket before I go and pop this thing into place. Okay, we're back. It's the next day. Let that RTV dry for 24 hours. I ended up settling on 90 inch-pounds. So I followed the bolt pattern. I did 60, and then I went to 90 inch-pounds. Some of the websites, Google, that was saying 90 inch-pounds was the way to go. That 120, I think, was just way too much. No leaks. I'll show you on the camera. take a peek underneath the car show, but it looks like bolted up. But between using the RTV and then that cheaper gasket from Amazon versus the Moroso one, I think this gasket was a little better. It seemed like it was a little, like the rubber was stiffer. It wasn't as soft, and I don't think it was going to squeeze out the way that the Moroso one did. So I've let the car ran in the garage for like 20 minutes. I didn't actually go for a drive, but no drips so far. I'll check in again tomorrow, see after it cools down and everything runs back to the pan, see if it leaks at all. But so far there's no drips. I'll turn the camera around and show you what it looks like installed. Okay, here it is installed. No drips. You can see that the gasket it did push out a little bit, but not anywhere near as bad as when I went to the 120. So I think it's an acceptable amount of push out. It's certainly a good looking pan. All right, so in conclusion, I don't think that pan is very good quality at all. With all them little cracks in it from the casting process, it wasn't from installation. It'd be around the bolt holes. It's actually from the casting process, as far as I can tell. Maybe from installation, it had a little something to do with it, maybe putting pressure. But the amount of cracks from following the recommended torque spec from a known manufacturer like Moroso, I wouldn't think that there should be stress cracks in there. I mean, besides that, the pan, it's kind of pretty looking. I think my cooling and my trans temperatures came down a little bit, not drastically, but a little bit. It looks nice. I don't know that I'd give it a ringing endorsement anyway. But I definitely, if you're going to use that gasket, I would use longer bolts like I did. And I would recommend using some RTV on it. And I would definitely recommend not going to the 120 inch-pounds of torque. So anyway, hope this content helps somebody out. If you like the content, as always, please like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.